gears a little bit, we'll talk about another American in La Liga. We spoke a little bit before about Luca de la Torre. We're hoping to see him find his groove with Celta. I know what he's capable of. You know what he's capable of. If there's a Celta de Vigo fan listening to this right now, what would you tell them about the player they're getting in Luca de la Torre?
So Luca is a guy that makes everything easier for his teammates. He can carry the ball out of tight spaces. He's very good technically, so he makes the game easy. He's one of those players that simplifies everything, and that helps the teammates around him. Very good understanding of the game.
hmm When you say good understanding of the game, I spoke a little bit about the passing vision that I think he has. Where do you think he really excels? Like, what separates him?
I think soccer, although it's a complex game, is a very simple game. You want to pass it from one player to another, and he understands that. So when he needs to take 3 touches, he takes 3 touches. When he needs to take 1 touch, he takes 1 touch. When he needs to carry the ball to break lines and open up space, he does that. So it's basically making everything easy, and that's what he does.
Yeah. So I'm glad you said that because my view on soccer has always sort of been it's a very simple game, but it's very hard to make it look simple. But I think sometimes when you watch La Liga, sometimes you see how beautiful and how simple it can be played. Do you see that same style in La Liga?
Definitely. La Liga is when Luca asked me about coming to La Liga, I recommended it for him because of the type of soccer and the type of player he is. I thought fit very well. It's you see a lot of times in the games the quick passing, the 1 touch, the 2 touch, the movement off the ball, the triangles, the positional game, and that's what makes La Liga a really top league because it doesn't have the athletes that the Premier League has, but from a technical standpoint and a game understanding standpoint, it's really high level.
Do you want to see more Americans go to La Liga?
I think it's great. When we have Americans in La Liga, I think it's always a good thing. We don't have a strong track record of Americans in La Liga, and I think that's growing now with Yunus and Luca, and I think it will continue to grow in the future.
hmm Do you think, and I sort of touched on this before, but more specifically as it pertains to Luca, do you think the style that he's being exposed to now, and the style that he kind of inherently has, will this help him for the national team?
Celta de Vigo is a very good club, very strong tradition of how they play soccer, and I think that will definitely help him. He's playing with very good players in training every day. Hopefully he's going to get more minutes on the field and show what he can really do at a high level. But anytime you have a player, playing midfield in La Liga, it's going to help the national team.
When he first signed with Valencia, what was your expectation? And think of where he is now. Has it lived up to what you thought?
We were getting a lot of information when Yunus just signed in Valencia about how he was doing and really tracking his progress. It was great to see his adaptation to La Liga. And, we knew he was high quality, and it was just about, can he get on the field regularly? Can he play in a position that he can excel in? And you see this year he's doing both of those things. So that's been great to see his development.
What about Valencia's style you think works for him?
Well, I think now that they're playing more of a 4-3-3 with the new coach, it's going well. Yunus is a player that can carry the ball explosively, dribble by players. He's still working on his final pass and finishing, but there's a ton of quality. Defensively, he can close down really well, and he's very secure on the ball. So, he's a really good midfielder to have, especially in a 4-3-3 system.
So talking about the La Liga style, especially the system he's in right now, looking ahead to the World Cup, how does the style he's playing right now help him?
The benefit of what he's doing right now with Valencia is very similar to what we do with the national team. We're playing a 4-3-3 also most times, and he's really comfortable in that position. So, it's great for us when we have players that play similarly with their clubs and with the country.
hmm So I heard an interview with you a while back where you talked about, we still almost haven't seen Yunus unleashed, and we saw a goal, absolute banger he had the other day that unfortunately got called back. But I think in that moment, we all kind of just saw what he's capable of, but you coach him a lot. You know him a lot better than most. What have we not seen from Yunus yet that you think we can see?
I think that's the missing link for Yunus is now the assists and the goals, and he has everything else. He's a great team player. He plays with an amazing amount of character and personality. And the next thing for Yunus is really can he start hitting the back of the net, because he has a very high level in him. He's one of the players in the group that we really believe in and we think has exceptional talent. So it's going to be fun to see how he keeps developing.
Last one about Yunus. Talk about him as a person, because Yunus the player, we know what we get, but Yunus the person is a really special guy to be around.
The one thing that when we think of Yunus, we think of the big smile, and that's what everybody thinks of. Just how he lights up the room with his personality and with his smile. I remember day one when he was in camp for the first time ever. Some players are intimidated and keep their heads down, but he kept his head up and smiled the whole time, and we knew that we were getting a special player. Okay.
And listen, I know every single journalist you'll ever meet asks you this question,
okay,
and so I just feel obligated.
I could probably guess what it is.
Can this team win the World Cup?
Yeah, it's a good question, and there's a lot of things that needs to happen before we even start that conversation, and I think. The way I like to frame it is all 32 teams at the World Cup, it's an accomplishment if they get out of their group, right? You look at Spain in last World Cup, you look at Germany in last World Cup, right? So the starting point to even have the conversation if you can win the World Cup or not needs to start with, can we get out of this group? And that's certainly a target of ours as a starting point. Then from there, do we believe that on any given day we can beat anyone in the world? Yes, we do. So now you start saying, okay, then now we need to play a very good game in the knockout rounds to keep advancing. And that's the goal. Once you get into the knockout round, it's just survival. You get in survival mode, and then anything can happen.
Yeah. So that goes exactly with what you've been echoing for a long time, which is similar to how I've always viewed the World Cup.
Yeah.
So I was happy to hear you say this, but it's basically 2 tournaments.
Exactly.
Group stage
That's
and then
exactly right.
March Madness. I like to think of it as. So that's the American way I like to think of it as.
Yeah.
But talk about that mindset, having one tournament as the group stage and then just survive and advance.
Yeah, I think that's just realistic because, I think there's maybe Brazil, right, is the only country that's always gotten out of the group stage. Mm-hmm. So maybe there's one country in the world in the history of the World Cup. So the starting point for every other country, right, so now it's 31 teams, has to be how do we get out of the group? And then once you go from there, you don't have to be the best team in the world to win the World Cup. You just have to be better than the opponents you're playing on that day. And that's, if you ask me, do I think we're the best team in the world? Not yet. But can we beat anyone on any given day? I think we can. And now it's about actually doing it.
Yeah, so you can't get too ahead of yourself, obviously. And what's that stat? It's like if you win the first game in your group, it's like 65% or whatever end up winning the group. How important is that first game for you guys?
Well, I think it's important, but I also think game 2 and game 3 are important, right? So it's you could read all the statistics about that first group game, but I looked at the results of the World Cup last year or in 2018, and there were teams that advanced without winning the first game. So it's just about staying calm, staying poised, sticking to your plan, and getting enough points to finish first or second.
Mm-hmm. So I don't want to say it's emotional, but with the U.S. missing the World Cup last time and us finally getting, and I say us, I'm part of this too, us finally getting back there, how do you not let the guys get too caught up in the emotion of being there and just focusing on what you have to do to win?
A lot of our guys or very few of our guys have been to a World Cup. So for most of them, for myself as a coach, it's going to be the first experience. And with that, part of the job is to stay calm and, play the game, not play the moment. The World Cup is a huge event with the whole world watching, and you just have to stick to what we've been doing. And the guys, I think, are really, they understand that, and I think we've been practicing that. So now it's about doing it again on the world stage.
Mm-hmm. So the way I view it is the generation that was the Donovans, the Dempseys, the Altidores is, now in the past. And because we missed the World Cup, we didn't get a chance to see what I think is a brand new generation of U.S. soccer. Can you define this generation in maybe a sentence or less?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's an overachieving or high achieving, um, unafraid, and close knit group. I think that's the best way I can describe it because if you look at the how old they are and what clubs they're playing in, it's incredible. Then you think about I don't see a lot of fear in these guys. I think they have a lot of belief. And then the third thing is they're a very close together team. I've worked with a lot of groups, and this is something really special with this team.